and welcome to A Good Walk Spoiled Adventures in Golf with your host, Scott Poniewaz, also known as Pony Golf. A Good Walk Spoiled is part of the Millions.co and Golfer Gang networks. Thank you for tuning in. Let's swing into this week's episode.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of A Good Walk Spoiled. I'm your host, Scott Poniewaz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today. As I record it, it is partway through the first day of the U.S. Amateur. Of course, as always, you can find me, Scott Poniewaz, on the old Instagram at pony_golf, as well as on YouTube. You can find this episode on YouTube, as well as all those different podcast networks out there, the Apples, the Spotifys, the iHeartRadios, all of those. So find me, share me, like me, and subscribe to wherever you take this podcast in, and obviously follow me over on the Instagram. So today, I kind of alluded to it, but we're going to head to the city by the bay, good old foggy San Francisco, and the legendary Olympic Club. So as I mentioned, the 125th U.S. U.S. Amateur is kicking off this week, and it is being hosted on the lake course over at the Olympic Club. And if you've ever dreamed of conquering a course that's humbled the greatest players to ever live, then you're in the right place, because we're going to be talking about the Olympic Club today, and it has it all. A rich history, brutally tough greens, and right now a field of the world's best amateurs all fighting for glory. This is a walk that has been spoiling golfers for over a century, and believe me, this week is no different. And so today we are going to jump into good old the Olympic Club. All right, so I had a chance to actually play the Olympic Club in April of 2024 for the Broken Tee two-man challenge, which was a part of the Golfer's Journal. It was a big day, 36 holes of golf. We were fortunate enough to be able to play both the lake and the ocean course. The lake is the more notoriously well-known course for a number of these championships, including the current U.S. Amateur that's kicking off today. And I do have to say, I was just blown away by the quality of this place. And I'd been to San Francisco plenty of times. I've played golf in and around San Francisco, but I had never actually played in San Francisco proper. And so, the Olympic Club, you pull up off the highway and it just sort of is a wall gated entrance, and very quickly realize that you're in a different place altogether. And once you get to the clubhouse and you just look out over Lake Merced, and you can see even club in San Francisco, golf club, and you just see the Olympic Club itself, and the legendary holes are right out the back door of the clubhouse. Number 18, you've been able to see on so many different PGA Tour / US Opens and other big golf events that have been hosted at the Olympic Club. And so that's why today, having had that very fortunate experience to have played in the Broken Tee two-man, which is hosted by the Golfer's Journal, that was back in 2024, having that experience just being so excited about this week to be able to see as well the US Amateur and seeing some of the highlights. And, as I am recording this, I'm actually going to just take a look and see who is currently in the lead. And it looks like there's a three-way tie, including the world number one, Jackson Koiven, Eric Lee, Ryan Downs are all out there. And then actually some other recognizable names. As an example, Luke Poulter he's tied for fourth right now. Some of you may recognize his father, Ian Poulter. So, it's just kind of getting underway now. There's a handful of holes that have been played now for some of those leaders, but the excitement is, the US Amateur, you get all these young guns that are playing, but then you also get some of these guys like Stu Hagestad, who's, I think he's in his 40s now at this point in time. He's, grown professional, working a day job. So still having to, take care of his work life as well as play his golf. So that's the cool thing about the US Amateur that happens. So good luck to everybody that's out there playing this week. And we'll see how the week shapes up as you're listening to this episode. But we're going to take a quick break, hear from a couple of our sponsors real quick, and then we're going to really dive into the Olympic Club, the history, some of the recent renovations, and some of the other interesting things, such as their very unique hot dog offering that is a feature at the Olympic Club and arguably or inarguably one of the best foods that are featured at a club in the nation. So we'll hit the pause button here and be back in just a second. And welcome back to this episode of A Good Walk Spoiled. Again, for those of you just joining, I'm Scott Poniewaz at pony_golf, as you see right there on the screen if you're watching on YouTube or one of the other video channels such as Millions Network, where you can pick up some merch as well featuring the Pony Golf / A Good Walk Spoiled logo there, hats, shirts, hoodies, all that fun stuff. So, and then of course I'm repping some Holderness and Bourne here. Love this sweater, which is perfect for the fall days that are about to start hitting and are already kind of hitting. It was 40 degrees here in Montana last week, so it's back up into the 80s, of course, but Montana in the summer can definitely go both directions in the weather world. But yeah, thanks to Holderness and Bourne for hooking me up with a bunch of gear and a bunch of golf shirts. So if you see me out on the course, a lot of times it now always is pretty much a Holderness and Bourne shirt or pants. So thank you, Holderness and Bourne. And if you're looking to purchase some new golf gear, please use the links that are in the description. That helps to pay for some of the podcasting, as well as some of my golf travels that fuel these podcast episodes. So thank you for those that are using those. All sorts of great stuff. Red Rooster gloves, Holderness and Bourne. Shop my merch on millions.co or, Vessel golf bags, all that fun stuff. So thank you so much for all of those sponsors that have helped support me so far and continue to support me. So if you're interested in any partnerships, just shoot me a DM. And with that, I think it is time for us to roll right in. So let's talk about the Olympic Club. To understand why it's such a special place, you definitely have to look at its history. Founded way back in 1860, it actually started not actually as a golf club. It was an all-around athletic club in the San Francisco Bay Area. Those of you that are watching on YouTube are seeing now, I've got the Olympic Club in the background here. So golf didn't actually become a centerpiece until the stunning lake course was opened in 1924. And almost immediately it earned a nickname, the Graveyard of Champions. And why such a dark name? Well, it's because this is where frontrunners come to die. The club has hosted now 5 U.S. Opens, not to be confused with the current 125th U.S. Amateur, but 5 actual U.S. Opens. And in almost every single one, a heavy favorite was famously upset. So looking back over the years, you can think about it. In 1955, you had Ben Hogan, and he was denied his record 5th U.S. Open by a little-known club pro named Jack Fleck. Jack Fleck ended up dethroning Ben Hogan in 1955, and then in 1966, just over a decade later, Arnold Palmer lost a 7-shot lead on the back nine to Billy Casper, and this course does not care about your reputation, and it demands your best, and even then, it might not be enough. And I definitely learned about this, and when I was playing, the rough wasn't even as thick as it is right now, but it always demands your best, and even then, it might not be enough. This week, marking the 4th time that the U.S. Amateur is being held at the lake course at the Olympic Club, and it's the club's 12th USGA championship overall. So that just tells you everything you need to know about its pedigree. The USGA trusts this place to identify the best of the best because it's a relentless test of skill and nerve. And I definitely learned this during the Golfer's Journal Broken T2 Man, which brought together a lot of the best golfers of the annual events that happen throughout the country with the Golfer's Journal. And so what makes the Olympic Club so tough? Well, for starters, the fairways on the lake course are incredibly narrow. They're framed by what feel like a million cypress trees and pine trees. And if the tee shot is a little bit off, you're going to be chipping sideways, backwards, and just trying to get out of trouble and take your medicine all day long. Like I said, right now the rough is incredibly thick and deep. When I played, it was still in a manageable length. I'm sure for sort of the everyday members that are playing there, it's kept more manageable for the average player. So even with that, I mean, I had quite a few errant tee shots that, if you're sitting off the fairway, a lot of times you're having to punch straight out just to be able to give yourself any sort of angle into the green. And speaking of which, the greens. So they're small, they're fast, and they're sloped to repel just about anything but a perfectly struck iron shot. And in some of these holes too, I'm not a huge hitter off the tee, but my playing partner is pretty long off the tee. And, even with some of these greens where they are going to test some of these U.S. amateur players this week and pretty much tease them into trying to drive greens, those greens are not designed to hold the drives. Even though they're shorter par fours and things like that, they're just basically gonna let these drives run off unless you're sort of playing it in the right way to run it up a green. But even then, a lot of them are protected by the bunkers. And so during the U.S. Amateur, the players are going to have to face the ocean course for stroke play, which brings its own set of challenges with the wind whipping off the Pacific. And then it's also just a beautiful scenic walk that will spoil your scorecard with one bad bounce. So the lake course gets all of the notoriety because it's hosted so many of these championships. But even during the U.S. Amateur, they will end up on the ocean course. And so the ocean course, perhaps not quite as tight, and it's not maybe as fast of greens and things like that, but it still is an incredibly well kept treasure of a golf course. And so it's like you've got the members that'll say that the lake is sort of like the favorite because of all the tournament play, but then the ocean course is just as phenomenal of a course, and not to be discounted by any means. And so when you're playing, especially when you're on the lake course. So I started on the 17th, which meant my second hole, it was a shotgun start. And so for my second hole, I was on 18. And so pretty much right out of the gate, on a long day of golf, I had the um, postcard hole of the Olympic club that I was playing. And when you're standing on that tee or even on the fairway, um, you're just feeling the ghosts of Hogan and Palmer on that 18th. And so you hit that tee shot off, maybe like a 3 iron or depending on your distance, maybe even 3 wood or whatever that is. And you're just basically putting yourself down in the fairway with a wedge shot up and, pretty straightforward feeling shot, but you're going up, pretty heavy incline and elevation change to the green. You've got bunkers protecting and, um, you just feel so good about it. It was my second hole in, and I was like, all right, here we go. Feeling perfect. Got my yardage figured out and put that wedge right into that front bunker, which is exactly what it's designed to do. I don't know if it was a little bit of breeze. I like to, consider that my excuse, but same thing that so many players coming into that 18th green have experienced. And that challenge and that miscalculation of distance into the green with such a simple, it's just a wedge, and that 120 yard shot that you're hitting into the green and coming up short in that big deep bunker is tough. So starting off now, that is just one of those challenges. And so as we start thinking about what's going on at the US Amateur and some of the distance challenges, like I said, there's some of these holes that have stood the test of time as being short, strategic golf holes. But, like any other golf course, things have to evolve. And that's where the course has had to pour a ton of work into keeping the lake course a modern monster. And so looking at some of the history a little bit more here, leading up to the 2012 US Open, the club brought in renowned golf course architects to basically restore and toughen the course. And this you're seeing across so many different famous courses nowadays. Some of the classics like Pinehurst and even Augusta every year has strategic changes to the course architecture in order to increase the challenge as distances and ball striking gets better. And so with 2012, one of the big changes were adjusting and redesigning the bunkers to make them more strategic. And they also managed the trees to bring some of the original sightlines back into play and then restored a lot of the greens to their intended diabolical shapes. So the goal wasn't to necessarily make it different, but it was to make it more, I guess, itself, you might say. So that pure test of strategic, intelligent golf, thinking about your where you're leaving your tee shots, where tee shots might run, where bunkers are placed, and also making sure that you're thinking through where some of those trees are, especially with some of the dog legs and other areas. And so while there haven't been massive headline grabbing changes just for this year's amateur, the course and the club's constant stewardship ensures that the course remains as challenging and as ever. And so looking back, Bill Love's 2012 renovations were intended for the US Open and really updating a lot of the bunkers and greens while honoring Whiting's designs, the original sort of intent in the lay of the land that the lake course was built on and opened on in 1924. So Bill Love stepped in 2012 to make a lot of those renovations that were for the US Open. And then what we saw more recently is Gil Hanse, who was hired by the Olympic Club back in 2022 to launch a comprehensive master planning effort for the lake and the ocean courses. And so his work really is aiming to restore, refine, and prepare the courses for the challenges of the future while still building on the long tradition of architectural stewardship that the course has prided itself on. And, even those prior renovations to the 2012 were sort of holding true to. And so in 2022, the Olympic Club, brought Gil Hanse in, and he really created a scope that included assessing and developing a master plan for the further restoration of Sam Whiting's original design intent, but then also studying the removal or repositioning of trees to reopen vistas and restore some of the playing angles. And so, as we've talked about on some previous episodes this season and last, there have been a lot of courses, especially through the 80s and 90s, that just thought more trees means more challenging course. So let's plant more trees and have these budgets for planting more and more trees, which ended up taking away from the original design intent that a lot of these courses were designed for. And so, with Gil Hanse removing and repositioning a lot of trees to open some of those expanses, or just change some of the sight lines that you might have around corners and other areas of the course. Revisiting some of the fairways, greens, and bunkers for both the playability and for championship purposes. So making sure that those bunkers that were on the course were still in play, still made sense, and were in the right locations to actually penalize or bring them into play for sort of standard driving distances now today. And then, of course, some of the issues that come around with sustainability, turf health, and adapting to advances in equipment. So those are some of the big challenges, especially with the lake course. But with the ocean course, one of those premier complements is, one of those big changes is bringing the ocean course up to an equal playing field as the lake course, so that it really becomes a premier complement to the more notorious of the two courses. And so, really Gil Hanse is focused on some of this long-term, looking forward kind of restoration and modernization, whereas a lot of Bill Love's 2012 work was more for the U.S. Open and really updating the bunkers and the greens for that U.S. Open play. Whereas Gil Hanse has been brought into a number of different clubs more recently, like Winged Foot, LACC, Pinehurst #2. And so it's not necessarily the dramatic redesigns and trying to really bump up, but it's more a thoughtful revision and like, I guess, building the course as it was originally intended. And so these recent renovations are really going to impact how the young players stepping out today for the U.S. Amateur are going to have their challenges to play this week. And so, Gil Hanse has had his impacts already. And so with those tight fairways, punishing bunkers, it's going to be all about precise shot making, especially those approach shots coming into those very challenging and fast greens. So I think you're going to see a little bit less of the bombing down the fairway, but maybe a little bit more thoughtful precision shooting off the tee with maybe a little less driver, some more long irons off the tee, or some other ways to manage the course a little bit better, to think about those shots into the green and avoid the double bogeys and avoid those trees as well that can wreak havoc on the players. And so I've been trying to watch at least the early leaderboard here this morning, and so We've seen, quite a few players are above par already. So, we'll see what happens. And, as we kind of talk about the course renovations today, I'd love to hear, um, from some of your perspectives, well-known, unknown courses. What are some of your favorite golf course renovations that you've had an opportunity to play? Like, so many courses are going through this right now that I'd love to hear more story ideas, even too, of different ones that I can cover on the podcast. But hit me up on my Instagram at pony_golf. If you hit me up, I might even send you a little pony golf swag as a thank you for the feedback and input. So drop me a DM if you've been listening to this episode. Share your thoughts on your favorite renovations or your least favorite. Has it made your home course better, worse? Love to hear it. Hit me up at pony_golf on the Instagram. All right. So with that, before we wrap up, I've got one more segment. It's gonna kind of change the pace a little bit here. All right, so I kind of alluded to it. We were talking a little bit about a famous food item that the Olympic Club features. And sorry, but I'm gonna make you hungry. I'm glad I ate a little bite of lunch before recording this, but as everybody's gearing up to watch the U.S. Amateur here, we are gonna talk about one of the most famous potential foods of just about any golf course in the country. For those that love their glizzies and their hot dogs for the turn, the Olympic Club has its own take, and it's the famous burger dog. Um, so if you haven't heard of this legendary culinary treat, let me paint the picture for you, and I'll in the edits here throw up a little picture of it. But if you haven't heard of it, it's not just a burger and it's not just a hot dog. It's this incredible hybrid. And so I think I had three when I was there, and it pretty much ruined my dinner because we were just trying to eat them when we could. So it's basically a hand formed beef patty shaped to fit perfectly in a hot dog bun. And then it's grilled to a like juicy perfection. Probably about 3/4 of an inch thick. And then it gets topped with all the classic fixings that you would throw on a hot dog or a burger. So you basically pull up to the shack, and they've got two on the course for the different courses, and you basically get all the classic fixings: the mustard, the ketchup, the onions, the pickles, and it's been a staple at the Olympic Club for decades. Originally created by a local vendor named Bill Parrish back in the 1950s to feed hungry golfers and spectators quickly. So I've heard stories, and trust me, I'm just drooling thinking about these things. They're so good. I've actually even thought about trying to figure out the recipe, and you can buy molds actually of the burger dog that help you. But during these big events like the US Open or this week's Amateur, they crank out thousands of these. And during the Golfers Journal event, they were also cranking out tons of these. And so if you play the Olympic Club, it's basically a rite of passage that you have a burger dog. So if you ever play around at Olympic, or you're fortunate enough to be at the US Amateur this week or at a US Open in the future, make sure that you're grabbing a burger dog at the turn. It's a quirky tradition, but it is a game changer. I promise you. You will dream of these things, and it gives you a tasty reward for being able to survive those first 9 holes of golf that you've made it through as a player. Or if you've never played, then it'll at least give you the energy to keep following your favorite players around. So, all right. So there's the little shout out to the world famous burger dog of the Olympic Club. And let's zoom in on the main event now, the 125th U.S. Amateur Championship. And here, it's one of the purest, most grueling tests in all of golf. It starts with 312 players battling through 2 rounds of stroke play on both the lake and the ocean courses to make it to the top 64. And then from there, it's just a brawl of single elimination match play on the lake course, culminating in a 36-hole final on Sunday. It's really winner takes all. There's no coming back from a bad day. If you lose, you go home. Enough said. So every shot counts on this course, and it truly is a spectacular test of golf. Even to get to the U.S. Amateur, players have earned their spots by winning their state amateurs. So as an example, Kate McDonough from here in Montana is competing at the U.S. Amateur this week. So each of your home states has your local amateur, and there's some other ways of qualifying as well. But the list of past champions shows you just what caliber of player is playing here. It's basically the who's who of golf royalty. Bobby Jones, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus, and of course, Tiger Woods, who won 3 U.S. Amateur Championships in a row. Winning the Havemeyer Trophy often means that you're destined for greatness. Like, no question about it. Winning is, up against such an incredible field of competitors and just getting there. So it's really going to be a showcase of the best players in golf right now this week. Adding to the prestige, football legend Joe Montana, Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice are honorary co-chairs of this. And so it just shows the kind of community support that the event has in the Bay Area. So this week, as you're watching the tournament unfold, since I'm recording this Monday, and it should be out this evening, pretty quick turnaround on this episode, pay attention to some of the holes that are really a good walk spoiled holes on the course. I'm talking about like the par 4 17th on a lake course, which can stretch to over 500 yards to a green that's nearly impossible to hold. Or just imagine the swirling winds coming off the coast, turning a simple-looking par 3 on the ocean course into a diabolical nightmare. Or if you're near San Francisco, I hear tickets might still be on sale. It's worth seeing in person just to be able to walk the grounds of the Olympic Club. It's truly a just incredible, incredible place worth seeing in person. And you just really can feel the undulation and the ups and downs and changes that this course has. The whole week really captures the essence of A Good Walk Spoiled, the namesake podcast that you're listening to, or I guess whatever. A Good Walk Spoiled, Adventures in Golf. I've been fortunate enough to have the Olympic Club as one of my adventures in golf, and it's not just a physical challenge to walk the over 7,000 yards of rolling up and down terrain on the side of essentially a mountain overlooking Lake Merced, but it's also the mental challenge and anguish of knowing that one single mistake in not even the stroke play, but also, of course, the match play as they get into that stage of this week could send you home and packing and finished for the week. So it's the pressure of standing over a putt with your dreams on the line. So if you're not muttering to yourself by the 18th hole at the Olympic, you're not truly embracing the experience. So to wrap it all up, we've got the legendary Olympic Club, a historical battleground with 12 USGA championships to its name, playing host to the 125th US Amateur this week. And it's been a place that's been renovated to remain just a brutal, relevant test of time in the game of golf since its inception in 1924. And it's got unique traditions like the burger dog to keep your spirits up as you're grueling and grinding through that first 9 holes and making that turn. And it's providing the perfect stage to watch the future of golf unfold this week with the U.S. Amateur and seeing who the next future legend of golf might be. It's a walk that's spoiled legends and amateurs alike, and I'm here for every single heartbreaking, triumphant second of it. So as we wrap up today, before we go, make sure you're following me on Instagram at @pony_golf for updates on the tournament and to share your own stories. Always DM me. I'm always looking for interesting stories. If you're interested in being a person interviewed on the podcast, reach out to me. Let's chat. And always looking for interesting golf stories, golfers, or people somehow tied into the golf world. So pass those along. And if you're enjoying the podcast, leave a rating, a thumbs up, a like, a subscribe, whatever platform you're using. It really helps our community of golf adventurers. Next time on the show, we will head to another hidden gem of a golf course, a walk that just might surprise you, so stay tuned. I want to thank you all for listening to A Good Walk Spoiled. Get out there, enjoy a walk. We've only got a couple weeks of summer still remaining before fall ball kicks in. Thank you to all of my sponsors like Holderness and Bourne, Millions. Go grab your merch for Pony Golf and A Good Walk Spoiled. And also, if you enjoy this podcast and are looking for other similar golf-related podcasts, check out the Golfer Gang Network, also linked in my description, for other amazing podcasts. And with that, enjoy the U.S. Amateur this week. Stay tuned for the next episode of A Good Walk Spoiled, and we will see you out on the course soon. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day. That concludes today's episode of A Good Walk Spoiled, Adventures in Golf, hosted by Scott Poniewaz. That's myself. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like, subscribe, rate it high, and follow us on Instagram at @pony_golf to stay in the loop. Catch you next time.